Hey everybody, it's Alan from Woodcrest Bonsai. Last year I did a video on getting Portugal Jade to grow thick trunks as quickly as you can. And of course, to get any tree to get a thick trunk, it needs to be put in a much bigger pot and then the growth allowed to just take off. That's what gets you big trunks. And so I'm going to begin work. I think I've got about 10. I put them into 10-inch bulb pans, and then I let them grow, as you can see, unchecked. This one is leaning tremendously, and actually it's leaning much more now because they were pot to pot to pot, so it was sort of leaning on others, although this is the pot on the very outside. But we can change that. We can bring that guy back up. And a lot of the reason it's leaning is because of just the weight of all this new growth. But you see all this new growth. We had 2 new leaders that just took off like crazy. And then another one right here. And the trunk has thickened considerably. But I want them even thicker. I want to try to get them to go even thicker. So I'm going to leave a lot of this lower growth. I am going to cut some just to make it easier to put this guy back upright. And I did not, once I put them into these pots, I did not root prune them. I did not prune the top at all, except for some that were very, very long that I cut like in here in order to get some frost cloth. The only cold protection I needed to do last year was to put some frost cloth over these guys, and I needed to cut some of them because they had grown so long that they weren't allowing the cloth to lie nice and flat. So that's the only thing I did with these guys. So I'm going to take this one off. And right now I'm not looking for any design. I'm not doing any kind of design. Just trying to keep some of the lower branches. I'm going to let them go crazy again. And then these top branches here, I think I'll cut to here. And I'll cut to here. And you can see we've got a pretty heavy-duty trunk. Starting. And all these low branches that will probably end up coming off will add to that trunk thickness. The lower they are, sacrifice branches. And so now I'm going to repot it too. You can see it's already not leaning anywhere near as drastically as it was, but I'm still going to repot it. And this is just my landscape mix. I don't really think it's all that old either. It hasn't degraded that much at all. So I'll probably mix this old soil in with some of the new and just put it right back in the pot. Not that I'm telling you to do that, but and if we come closer to the trunk, we're probably going to find that we have an even more robust trunk lower down. Oh yeah, look at that. This really has increased in girth very nicely. And, paradoxically, doing a root pruning like this and putting it into new soil will stimulate growth. This is not how you keep trees small. You keep trees small by restricting the roots into small pots. So and I'm just is the word casual correct? Just casually trying to get some of the roots, you know, to be radial, because I don't think that's the big of a deal either. Portulacaria typically don't produce classic Nabari, where a lot of trees do. So that's not an issue either. Okay. That looks pretty good. So is it going to stay stable? I may need to cut off more of this stuff. Okay. Much better. So this root pruning will let me put it right back in the same pot, but it will still produce that much more growth. And I have some new soil, but not a lot. So that's why I'm being chintzy. And I think I'm going to mix some of it in with this old soil. Okay. Much better, much more upright. Okay. Now, as the same with any dwarf jade that I root prune, let it rest for a day, no water for a day. Let those scars heal over and harden off, and then water it tomorrow. And so there we go. It's ugly as sin, but the trunk has really thickened up beautifully, especially if we look this way. Let's get rid of that guy, just because he's going to be in the way of the camera. So the trunk has thickened up really nicely. And now, whoosh, just let it go. Completely unchecked for the whole rest of the summer. It's the middle of May, so we got, you know, June, July, August, September. And do I have... I think I have enough for another one. I've got about 8 or 10 of these, but I don't have enough of my landscape mixed soil to do them all. But I think I've got enough for at least one more. And I don't think I need to show you all 10, because it's exactly the same procedure as you will see with number 2. Now, another thing is we now have a gigantor pile of cuttings that came from that guy, and I told myself anything about finger thick or heavier, I was going to cut into little tiny, well, I guess I can do it right now. I was going to cut right at every node, like this. And then there, and then there, and then probably there. And this is too thin. So, but I'm going to take these guys now, these 4 little stumpies, and I'm going to root them. And they're going to be they're going to be sumos. So take this off here. So that's how I'm going to root. I'm just going to root a little tiny chunker. And because I want the angle like this, because of this growth here, I'm going to cut the base a little more like that. This one's even got a branch here. And these are the same way. Give them a day to heal over. Well, there we go. There's 4 of them from this tree. And did I have another one that was that thick? I don't think I do. But on some of these, I'm going to be removing some very thick branches. This stuff here is all yard trash. It just goes into the yard trash bucket. I know Jim Smith grew a lot of portulacaria, and sometimes he would have customers, fairly new to bonsai, and he'd be trimming his portulacaria. So he grew a whole bunch of pre-bonsai. And of course, he'd end up with a giant pile of cuttings like this, and the newcomer would say, or a giant pile of trimmings, and the newcomer would say, "Oh my God, you've got so much more cuttings." And of course, Jim wouldn't tell him that he was going to throw it all away, because when you get to a certain point, you just can't propagate everything. So in the beginning, I love to take a stock plant that I've just purchased and propagate as much as I possibly can. But there's kind of like the law of diminishing returns. Once you've got 147 of them, you probably don't need 247 of them. And even Jim, who sold them commercially, he only had a certain amount of space. So these are all yard trash, as it should be. So let me get another one. I'll go put this critter. And as soon as I see some decent growth off of this guy, then I'm going to pound it with fertilizer. Good quality, slow release kind of fertilizer. You don't want to fry them. But, my experience with portulacaria, and once again, I'm in zone 10 in the U.S., very tropical, very warm. In fact, we're looking at mid-90s for most of the rest of the week, which is pretty hot for May. But they can take a lot of water and they can take a lot of fertilizer, at least where I live here, in the summer. I never worry about overwatering my portulacarias in the summer, because, man, all they do is just take that water and they just grow with it. As things cool down, overwatering can create some rot, but I really have no trouble with rot on my portulacarias. Almost never. So let's go get number 2, and we'll do it one more time. So this is number 2, and this tree didn't really thicken all that much, and it doesn't really look like it. We ended up with 2 really heavy-duty pieces of growth, and this is one of those where I told you I chopped it at the top to get the frost cloth on. So right there, I chopped that. And this is a pretty good example too, is when you chop, you'll get that little nub, and that little nub will just pop right off. So that was the chop to get the frost cloth on. And this is just random. I probably could have gone through and found one that was better off. But I think I'm taking this guy off completely. And here's another one. Perfect subject to do some sumos. You know, just cut it like that, and then cut it like that. Oh, come on. Oh no, I have to remember which side was up. So there you go. Well, you got a 50-50 chance. And I don't know. See, we could actually make a pretty decent tree right here. Bring it up into here, and it wouldn't be that thick. But I'm also going to chop off this very large growth right here. And this time I'm going to remember which side is up. For the sumo. Okay, and I've got more to cut off of those, but so now we've got, you know, what I really want is this stuff here to go crazy. Still have a lot of the big knobbiness from, oh look at that, this is rooted into the ground. This branch hit the dirt, hit the dirt, hit the dirt, and rooted right into the ground, into the pot. Whoa, some pretty nice extensive roots. But I told myself I really just wanted the big thick ones to turn them into some sumos. So actually that one there can just sit on the counter, on my work counter, for a week and still be alive. The beauty of Portulacaria. Alright, so now let's do the same thing with this guy. See what we've got going on. You know, as we get closer to the trunk and start removing the soil, we may find a nice surprise of how much thicker the trunk is, just a little bit under the soil. Ugh. Oh yeah, not bad, not bad. See, much thicker under the soil level. Just a little bit, and look how thick it's gotten. And to tell you the truth, I don't really remember how thick these things were when I put them in here. But they have definitely gotten thicker through this process of just allowing all that growth to just go crazy. A root here that's shooting too circular. Oh yeah, look at that, man. That's some very, very nice trunk. And once again, I'm not looking at total meticulous root work right now. It's so funny because I've been watering these guys like crazy because we are in the middle of a drought. Massive, massive dry. And I'm watering them every single day, and yet the lower soil is still dried up completely. But of course they're jade, so that doesn't matter because they are, of all the trees I have, they are supremely drought tolerant. Alright. Yeah, I'm looking for, up into here. Like that, up into here somewhere. But leave this lower stuff on to pump into the base. And if they fall over a little, okay. They fall over a little. You can always right them. Alright, I've got a little bit more soil here, my good soil. And I'm probably crazy to add it to this old crummy soil, but I really need to get to sifting some more of my leaf mold. But I think this will be just fine. Because it really doesn't, because it was so dry, it's just so dry still. It hasn't degraded that much, that old soil. Okay, let me give it a little bit of a, and plop this guy in here. Take another little inventory of the roots. I tell you, I'm really happy with the progress of these first two. And there's a couple other things I was thinking about with these guys. One of them, well, maybe I'll go get one. Have to put it on pause. Okay, I'm back. I guess I should at least throw some soil into this guy. Even though, once again, the roots could remain exposed for a week and the tree would still be alive. Some of the smaller feeder roots might not be happy about that, but anyway, so I've been eyeballing these guys because I water every day, unless Mother Nature helps me out, and lately she ain't been doing anything. Because I know there are bigger ones in here that have even thicker trunks, and those, you notice that I took the same exact pot, root pruned it, so now there's much more space for the new roots to grow back into the same pot. But some of the larger ones, I've been thinking about putting them into even bigger pots. So that's a 10-inch bulb pan. This is what they call a Pantera bowl, and this is a 12-inch. And they do make 12-inch bulb pans. I did not buy any the last time I ordered bulb pans, but I have some that are just sort of sitting around. Is this one? No, I think that's a 10. Yeah, that's a 10. Got stuff just laying around. Or, that's a 12-inch. There's also that size, which is a 14, if I'm not mistaken. Right? What does it say? Yeah, 1400. That's 14 inch. So put some of the even bigger ones into even bigger pots without maybe so much root pruning. And then, of course, I also am planning on clearing an area and putting them into the biggest pot in the history of the planet, and that is, of course, the planet itself, which sometimes is called the ground. And in the ground, or even in a bigger pot, they're going to grow that much more vigorously. They're going to, especially in the ground, they would just take off and go crazy. Putting them in the ground can be a little tricky because I plan on leaving them for at least a year. And so if we get cold, at least cold enough to damage them, then I'll need to be doing some sort of cold protection, in place, because I don't want to dig them up. At least if they're in pots, even, these size pots, they can be moved around and given some better cold protection. And I'm out of soil. So there we go. There's two. And I think that even just these two are going to grow and thrive, and the trunks will be just that much thicker. Come another year. This is a year project now. So nothing. Do nothing with these trees for a year except copious amounts of fertilizer and water. So there you go. I think the results speak for themselves, how much that the trunks have thickened. And I have a video of taking these trees from other pots and putting them into these 10-inch, so you can click on that at the end of this video. And we are basically at the end of this video. So thank you for watching. You know, it takes some time to do this, and I understand that, but you're going to get trunk thickness and taper and development, you know, etc., 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 that will create bonsai that you're going to like more. You know, I don't want to say good bonsai or bad bonsai, because I'm not sure there's such a thing. But your trees would be better for it by taking 2, 3, 4 years, however long it takes. Pump the trunks full of energy, get them good and thick, then cut them back and create the taper and the movement that you want. So thanks for watching. Please like this video if you liked it, and leave a comment. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, and we'll be able to watch these guys grow together. And like I said, I'm not going to do a thing with them now. They can grow wherever, however. So like these all funky guys right here, if they want to grow 3 feet out this way, fine with me. Same with all this other excess stuff here. Just let it go. That's how you get trunks. That's how I get thick trunks. Large pots give the roots a tremendous amount of space, and let the top just go crazy. So that's it for this video. So thank you so much for watching Woodcrest Bonsai.